Hi, Dan. Thanks for joining us today. And to the audience, Dan is the CTO and co-founder of Deep Lake Finance. They are building a very useful platform for DLC APIs. In a nutshell, that means now you can build in a lot less time, awesome Bitcoin DeFi applications that were not possible before. And we believe that this is one of the technologies that will be spearheading the Bitcoin renaissance for DeFi. So imagine the same Ethereum Web3 DeFi products, but only bigger and better with Bitcoin at the core. Okay, but before we get there, today we're talking about Dan's founder's journey into Bitcoin. So let's start from the top, from before you even got into Bitcoin, Dan. What were you doing this? I mean, like what before you became an entrepreneur? What were you doing?
Well, I have, going way back, started as a developer, and through that path had grown into kind of project and program management, for development teams, and had been doing that for a while. But I had always been doing development on the side as well. So it's always been kind of like a side hobby, and I've been experimenting with different types of new technologies. So new technologies was always a fascination for me. Privacy and security were always important to me. So I had started off working with Linux way back in the day, did some early Android development, and was really kind of like, as my job in kind of project management was my day job. Development and playing with these new technologies was my kind of hobby.
Yeah, super cool. Yeah, thanks for sharing your background with us, Dan. So, I mean, it's no easy task for someone from, how many years were you doing development before you became an entrepreneur?
Really just a few, maybe.
Okay.
Again, development was kind of, it has always been part of my life, but like full-time development was early on, 3-4 years, but then kind of never really professionally on the side, just as a hobby. That was for 10 years or so.
Wow. Okay. So before you got into Web3 and became a founder, did you start any other businesses or side hustles?
I had started a business. Again, I mentioned Linux, so I was doing Linux consultation for a while, building kind of small business offices, file servers, and things like that. Yeah, that's, I had primarily worked in that space, kind of SMB space.
Yeah, very cool. So, and how old were you then? Can I ask when you did your first consultancy job with Linux?
Oh, maybe 27, 28.
All right, excellent, excellent. And did you do anything entrepreneur before then, like say as a teenager or?
Actually, my time as a teenager, I was really more interested in like psychology and kind of personal development kind of things, less on the
Mhm,
entrepreneurial side, although it was always something that I kind of looked to and was kind of had a side interest in. I mean, I
mhm.
think that as you grow up, you kind of realize that uh, to really kind of build something on your own or do something on your own, take control of your own life, you really kind of need to have that journey, that entrepreneurial journey. And so while I grew up kind of more interested in like psychology and those kinds of things, as well as computers, the entrepreneurial side was always just something kind of like watched from a distance. So I used to subscribe to Inc. magazine and things like that and read about those things, but never really took that early journey, early leap.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. Well, I mean, psychology is very closely related to the entrepreneur's journey because I believe it is a process of self-actualization, right? And really, I think the biggest challenge of entrepreneurs is not really the market, it's really about how we face ourselves and keep growing, right? So we could become capable enough to grab market opportunities.
Understanding your own strengths and weaknesses is key.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So um going back to this, so as a teenager, you would read about entrepreneurship, and so it would sort of be on your peripheral, and then in your 20s you finally took the plunge, right, and accepted a consulting job. What was that like? you're talking about taking your life into your own hands. Like how did that come about?
Well, so quite honestly, running your own business was interesting. Running my own business was interesting, but I always had this hesitation to take that next step to kind of grow the business. So I was fine as a one or two person operation, but at the times that we had the opportunity to scale, I kind of backed away from those things just because I didn't really know better. Really, didn't really understand the next steps to take, and where um, where the pitfalls might be, those kinds of things. So it was really like almost like a fear and hesitation to kind of try and grow. So I kind of stayed small for a couple of years.
Oh, okay. All right. So, but I mean, like you had the courage to take on those projects, but you talked about like you didn't want to grow it too big, right?
I didn't understand how to manage the risks around growing, if that makes
Okay.
sense, right? Payrolls, accounting, those kinds of things, invoicing, things like that. So that kind of led me to back off at the time.
Oh, okay. All right. And then after your Linux consultancy jobs, that's like you're warming up for entrepreneurship. What was the next thing?
Well, that's when I went back to kind of professional life, went back into the project management, but I started kind of taking charge of developer groups. So I was the head of Google developer groups in Florida for a while. I was the head of the Linux groups in Florida for a while. And so those kinds of things led me to kind of be more outgoing, more collaborative, taught me like how to work with others and how to delegate more, right? So I think like um, that community leadership actually helped prepare me a little bit for this kind of life too. Um, Obviously, no money's involved there, so it's a little bit a little lower pressure. But taking leadership roles is important.
Yeah, no, that's a important point, right? No, like once you take some leadership roles, it does expand our purview, and it balances out our tech skills, right? And
Absolutely.
that's definitely in preparation for entrepreneurship. And then what did you? And then after that, what was the next startup or business that you did?
So the next startup was actually related to Stacks blockchain. So when Stacks blockchain launched, excuse me, I had been building applications on Blockstack, which had its own virtual chain, which settled to Bitcoin. And so over the years that I was working with Blockstack, I became more familiar with Bitcoin, more understanding about kind of the whole financial sovereignty end of it. And so when the Stacks blockchain launched, my partner and I formed a company to start building Boom Wallet. And that was kind of the really start of when we focused on trying to build a product.
Okay. And how long did you work on that boom wallet for?
Um, 2 years.
2 years. Okay. And so 2 years, and then after that was Deep Lake.
Correct.
Okay. And so this is always a pretty big decision, right? What was your reasoning to pivot and to join join forces with Abdel and Nick and become co-founders for Deep Lake versus
Well,
continuing with Boom Wallet? I mean,
it's lessons learned actually from the Boom Wallet experience. Early on, we had a lot of interest in potential investments, and my co-founder and I kind of put that to the side, and we thought, let's build this our own way. Let's build it slowly. Let's take our time. We don't want to take investments right now. And looking back, that was a mistake. What ended up happening is we ended up without the funds to actually kind of grow the way we really needed to grow, right? So I kept Boom running as a personal project, and I did some work with the Stacks Foundation to help build out the Boombox protocol. But Boom never really got the chance to grow the way it should have, the way we could have early on. And so when actually I run a weekly Twitter space where we have just a community collaborative discussion. And Nick, our other co-founder, was in that space, and we were arguing about, excuse me, Bitcoin DeFi. And I felt like we were beating up on Nick a little bit, so I DM'd him later and said, "Hey, hope we weren't beating up on you too much." He's like, "No, that was a great discussion. Let's talk again." And I'll bring my CEO from my new company. And I was like, "Okay, sure, let's talk about it." And we started talking about Bitcoin DeFi and what it meant to us and how things might work, and all the different pitfalls and opportunities. And during that meeting, Nick said, "You should join us. This is what we're doing." And I was hesitant at first, but the more I looked at it, the more I looked at Nick is something, like I said, when you what's one thing that's important is knowing your weaknesses and strengths. So during the pre-accelerator, during the Bitcoin Startup Lab, I had met Nick and realized he was like kind of my counterweight, right? Or he could be my counterweight. He's the outgoing, very talkative, very enthusiastic person. I'm more on the technical side. I tend to go straight into tactical um, arguments and how things work. And so, Nick and I kind of fed off each other really well. And when I looked at Nick, and then I learned about Abdel, who's brilliant, I was like, okay, this is something I can't really pass up. These guys are great, and the things that they're building are pretty cool.
Super awesome. Yeah. I mean, I think you guys are, the stars have aligned, meaning that the three of you are very complementary, which form a very powerful core team. Also, I mean, it's a new day for Bitcoin, right? I mean, although Taproot was there was 2021 November, but there's like so many things going on, right? There's NFTs, there's just like so many other like more sexy things going on. So not a lot of people were paying attention to it. But now
Well, and there's tons of experimentation now, right, with Ordinal protocol. At the recent Ordinal conference, I was just blown away by the energy there. People just wanting to try new things, asking us a bunch of questions. Can we do this? Can we try that? Can you make this protocol? How do you do that? I mean, it's just great energy. People experimenting, people trying new things, people building.
Yeah, I mean, compared to 6 months ago, it wasn't like this. It wasn't like this. It was more like, I mean, even for our applications, out of every 100, it'd be maybe like 20% actually came to us wanting to build on Bitcoin. Now it's the reverse. It's like almost every single application is actually focused on Bitcoin or some kind of technology building with Bitcoin, like Lightning or Stacks or Rootstock, etc. Right. So it really is complete night and day. It's amazing. Like
it's exciting.
It's really opened up people's imaginations, right? What Ordinals did with the Taproot, and then so DLCs is also part of the Taproot upgrade. Can you tell in layman terms what this does for builders? Because you guys are I would say you guys are like an enabler, right? And enabling technology to allow builders and creators and entrepreneurs to build easier and faster on Bitcoin, right? So can you share with us what that means?
Sure. So at their core, DLCs basically allow you to have a non-custodial multi-sig that unlocks based on the outcomes that may be determined by an external oracle or some other method. And so you don't have to worry about somebody holding your Bitcoin if you want to use it in some fashion. So the core is really simplifying that opportunity around DLCs. The core of Deep Lake is really around simplifying that. And so there are like multiple things you can do on top of DLCs. One of the core things that we're doing is opening up liquidity to different protocols. One of the things we're doing is opening up these APIs to other teams so that they can build their application, their vision on top of DLCs without having to have that underlying expertise directly. So we're really excited about the opportunities here.
Yeah, and then I mean, before it would be like, what if they didn't use your APIs? It would take weeks more or months more to build that foundational technology and then start building. And what's it before after?
So right, I mean, to really build these things well, and there's a few people that really understand at their core how to build DLCs properly. And to enable all these startups to do that themselves, they'd be basically hiring Bitcoin developers, right? And we just know that that market isn't scalable right now. And
Right.
so what we do is we
There's not that
provide,
many to go around. Yeah.
right? So we provide a layer there that enables kind of everybody to have their Bitcoin developer, for months at a time, with easy access to all that kind of functionality without having to go through finding somebody to actually build that for you yourself and maintaining it for yourself. Like, it's obviously not just the building, it's the maintenance, right? Ongoing.
So it's like you're saving people months at a time.
Months,
Yeah, that's
many months.
in startup terms, those are like, years. Yeah, and that could be the difference between life and death. Also, if you have enough money or not enough money, right? So that's definitely take a huge pain away. Now, can you share with us some of the more exciting projects that have used your technology and have
Sure.
done things because of this?
My favorite one is Liquidium. They're building an ordinal loan protocol, loan protocol, I guess, on top of our APIs. That's the most exciting one. We've had talks with other partners to talk about stable coins. We're working with some others on some mining tools and some other things that we might see. So DLCs are really kind of wide open if you have the underlying technology, if you have the underlying foundation. Building on those Bitcoin primitives is hard, and that's kind of where we step in and, like I said, provide that easy access.
Yeah, DLCs can unlock like derivatives markets, peer-to-peer betting, gambling. It unlocks, as you said, all different types of credit, borrowing, lending,
GameFi.
Yeah,
So
and include
we've even had talks with some BRC projects about things that they might be able to do with DLCs.
Yeah, I mean Dexes as well. But yeah, no, that's the Liquidium project is definitely is also a pioneering project, just like you guys. I believe they're also the first, right, in their category, which is using ordinals as collateral, and then so the lenders can get native Bitcoin yield back, right, in a non-custodial way. Is that correct? Yeah.
Correct. So if you have an ordinal and you want to borrow against it, you can propose a loan. Someone can activate that loan by signing their end of the DLC. The borrower would get the Bitcoin, and they have a repayment schedule. And if the repayment is not made, the ordinal at certain time lock, certain block height will unlock and go to the lender. If they do repay the loan, obviously the lender will get their Bitcoin back, and the borrower will get their ordinal back.
Yeah, super. And I hear you guys are a lot of investors are trying to invest in you guys right now. What's the next big release you guys are gonna do?
Well, right now we're working on easy liquidity for protocols. So we have built what amounts to an easy button for protocol developers. It could also be used for like new startups, anyone who kind of wants to kind of trustlessly access Bitcoin liquidity. You can see this kind of replacing bridges, Kickstarter type of applications, things like that.
So wait, you're saying you guys are gonna, let's say I build a new Bitcoin DApp, right? Decentralized application on Bitcoin. And well, let's say it's something to do with DeFi. So liquidity is a big issue, right? I had to make sure that there's enough people putting up Bitcoin for the service to run. Are you saying that there's going to be like a money pool or money market or like a liquidity pool? Like, what can you describe that to me? Like, how does that how does that work?
So at the base level, we have the tools, the API to kind of enable builders who want to access our API directly to build those liquidity pools themselves. But we've also
Wow.
gone a step further and made basically a button that they can embed on their website. It's less than 20 lines of code, and it basically shows up as a button. And you can click, have your users click this button and add to your liquidity pool. So they lock their Bitcoin in a non-custodial way, and as a protocol builder, I can determine like how that's going to be rewarded, how I'm going to build out on how I'm going to use that Bitcoin. So whether it's building a stable coin, or maybe I want to do something a little bit more degen, the user has the opportunity to go in there and look at that and say, okay, I would not mind locking my Bitcoin for this amount of reward with this amount of risk, versus another amount of reward with another amount of risk. But the protocol builders get to decide all that, and then the users can pick whatever they want. And we've just kind of boiled it down to a simple button so that you can embed on your website and have your users start providing you liquidity once you build the tokenomics.
Wow, that's pretty powerful. That is super fun.
Yeah,
When is
it's
that
amazing.
launching?
That's available now. So we're talking to different people, different protocols right now about how they can use it.
So what's the persona of these ideal protocols? And what are they going to be doing?
Well,
This,
it could be new. So it really impacts anyone who's using Bitcoin liquidity now. That's one, right? And a lot of these are via wrapped bridges. So you can imagine either supplementing or replacing those bridges for any existing protocols, or new protocols that are just coming into existence. They can use it however they want again. So they can do a stable coin against the amount of liquidity that's put into those DLCs. And again, the key thing for the Bitcoin provider, the owners of Bitcoin, is there's no risk there, right? It's in a DLC, it's in a multi-sig. There's an Oracle, obviously, but they can choose where to put it, and then if they choose to take it away, then the protocol builder might, like burn a stable coin or something like that, right? But it's still owned by the Bitcoin owner. No more throwing it into a custodial bridge that's owned by 5 17-year-olds. So
nice. That is also a game changer. So where do people like learn more about how to use your APIs or even work with you guys?
I believe we have the APIs up on the website now at deeplake.fi.
Okay.
If our
Deeplake.fi.
website's
So that's DEEPLAKE.fi.
correct.
Deeplake.fi. Okay. Excellent. So all right. It sounds like this is definitely going to be a game changer. Like, because there's going to be a lot of people listening in on this interview. There's going to be users. There are going to be your customers, which are other developers or startups, right? And of course, there's going to be some very savvy and smart investors, right, who want to get in on the Bitcoin DeFi revolution this year. So, what do you have to say to them?
I say we have like some great opportunities. DLCs unlock a number of use cases. We've made DLCs super easy, and we're going to continue to kind of improve and as we see the market maybe implement newer tools that make things even easier for users, like our button. And so, yeah, we'd love to talk.
Super. And then for those, and as we sort of touched on a little bit earlier, there are a lot of entrepreneurs from, I mean, not even Web3, they could be from Web2 or some other place. And also there's also people in the Web3 space who now are thinking, oh, I think I want to build on Bitcoin, like what do you have to say to them? They're like on the fence, right? So should I go into Bitcoin now or later? Like what do you say to them?
I say it's the time to jump in is now. The energy is amazing. It's growing. I think we're at like the way I dream of it is we've got this like well of water about to just shoot out of the geyser, right?
Uh,
and Bitcoin's that energy, Bitcoin's that pressure that's building. And soon we're going to see that geyser explode. And now's the right time. Now's the right time. Bitcoin's super exciting again. So many opportunities and so many different options.
Super, super. Thank you, Dan. Thank you for your time. We're looking forward to all the new features on your DLC API. Again, this is Dan Trevino. He is the co-founder and CTO of Deep Lake Finance, and they're doing some groundbreaking stuff with DLC APIs so you can build on layer 1 Bitcoin. And this is going to be a game changer for us all. They are opening an entire genre of Bitcoin DeFi, non-custodial native Bitcoin yield. Thank you, Dan.
Thank you, Albert. Thank you so much. Nice talking to you again.
You too.